Alright, ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to another Ration Cast. So today we're having a look at Gragas, played by the #1 top laner on the Korean server at the moment. And it is going to be Zeus, at least the #1 pro player. You remember there's this whole thing about Addy being the best, but he obviously doesn't play every champion. You know, he's not a pro player. So Zeus, definitely the one that most people would consider to be a little bit better. And we're going to have a look at his Gragas page. This is something new that I'm implementing here, so tell me how you like it. We're going to look at him versus the average master Gragas player. I think this should be challenger, but it's totally fine. There is no challenger, which makes sense, because very little amount of data, right? So we're going to look at him, and we will see that generally, right, we can kind of tell, okay, teamfight win rate is high, duels win rate not so high, kills under enemy turret not so high, especially for Zeus. You always have to, with these stats, understand that we are talking about Zeus here, right? Teamfights, participation, solo deaths under enemy turret. And generally, if we look at these stats, we kind of get the impression, all right, this pick isn't a carry pick. You know, you're not supposed to blow anything out of the water. But, and this is very important here, we're going to see Zeus's little twist on the champion right up here, where he gets many more creeps per minute. He has a little bit less kill participation, and kills and assist generally lower, which comes with kill participation, obviously. Damage dealt is still same. And the gold per minute is also similar. This is obviously the shift in, like, he's farming more where others are roaming more. And so we see that he plays a little bit more of a lane focus style here of the Gragas pick. And we're obviously going to get into how exactly Gragas works out in general. He has a very good win rate with it. And maybe in the future we will look at the rank 1 Gragas in the world in the future. But for now, we're just going to have a look at that, and we will kind of try to figure out what exactly we are dealing with here on the Rift as we jump into the game. On the Korean server here, it is obviously the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. T1 Zeus on the Gragas top lane. He is going to be facing off against a Jace, so definitely a matchup that we could potentially, if things go poorly, see in the Korean pro scene. But we are also going to have a look at the rest of the match, obviously, with a Lee Sin here starting out in the jungle role. Let me switch those two up. Lee Sin starting out in the jungle role, facing off against a Poppy, which is very good against the Lee Sin pick. Decent against the Jace pick as well, with the Cassiopeia here playing for Zeus's team, the red team, and Annie facing off against her. In the bot lane, we have a Lucian Nami for the blue team, facing off against Zaya Rakan on the red one. So, what makes Gragas such a strong pick? Now, first of all, Gragas is a very deep champion. He doesn't look like it, but he is one of the more complicated champions to play. It's kind of weird because he has a very low barrier to entry, but a very high threshold to master. Now, people say that about a lot of champions, but he specifically is one of those that would lead that charge, in my opinion, because there's a lot of combos, and this is something that I've picked up over watching quite a few Gragas players in the last couple of days, kind of digging into that pick, is a lot of pro players seem to say that, yes, Gragas scales with your skill, but it also scales with the enemy skill just a little bit, as the Gragas ultimate, oftentimes not the most reliable pick, as a beautiful barrel here will catch the wave and will catch the Jace. And we see how Zeus is guarding the top side bush here, and he's gonna stay in that bush, and he's gonna be walking in and out to kind of, you know, screw with Jace and kind of play with him. And so far, I mean, this is already not, this is illegal. This is such a good start here by Zeus. I don't know if that auto attack trade was so good, but the reason he took it was because of the minions. And there's a level 2 here available to Zeus. And this is just very cleanly played. And it's very interesting as you see him play around what Jace thinks that he needs to do. And he just takes the solo kill. Just like that. Bada boom, bada bam. 1 kill has been acquired. And the thing is, right, that this matchup should not go this way. So what are the mistakes that Jace made? I mean, first of all, he relinquished bush control. Second of all, he got hit by a Q that tagged the minion wave as well as tagging him, which first of all created a big HP lead, or reasonable HP lead. And the reasonable HP lead goes a very long way here with the pick, obviously, as Jace needs his HP in order to bully and threaten. Now, the problem with Gragas and what makes Gragas so strong is that, first of all, Jace players often play inside of the minion wave against stuff like the Gragas, but you can't really play inside it, you can't really play outside it. If you play inside it, you get hit by the Q. If you play outside it, you get tagged by the E. Also very strong against the trading patterns of Jace, right? As we can see here, as Jace just disrespecting the minions. These are level 3 minions, and you are rocking MR because you're gonna be facing off against the Gragas, which means that these minions, they do extra hurt here. Something that we definitely don't want to see. Yeah, so he is going to be taking increased amount of punishment. The thing here is, right, that eventually, yes, and this is exactly what is going on, is that Zeus eventually is going to be running low on mana. Now, he is holding his W here for the lethal, potentially lethal damage here, and he does a good job at it. And he's going to be taking the recall here with his teleport. He will be back in that lane just in a heartbeat. He's doing very good at CSing. He has acquired a kill early on, and he chooses the boots. Now, the boots are going to be weird, because what the boots do not do is give you combat stats. What the boots do is they give you the ability to dodge, right? The ability to kind of wiggle back and forth in the lane, kind of make Jace use his spells. As we are going to be pulling out the wave, obviously, right? That is kind of a no-brainer. As we want to skim this wave a little bit. It's a little bit too big. The way it is right now, it would just shove in very, very hard. And this is not really something that you want to deal with. So skimming out the wave could have been pretty nice, but he used his Q earlier to farm minions instead. So he is going to have to maintain the wave differently, or he just lets it crash into the turret, because Jace obviously also pretty good at breaking these kind of freezes. As we are running cooldown reduction boots. So cooldown reduction boots, right, they give you, which I wanted to talk about earlier, they give you a little bit of control over obviously dodging skill shots and so on and so forth, but they also help you with the spacing, especially against something like a Jace who likes to walk at you very quickly, uses W. If you get a lot of movement speed early on, it's going to be very hard for the Jace to pick you up, as Jace tried to time his E in a manner that allows him to beautiful solo kill, tries to use his E in a manner that allows him to get out of the cask, but ultimate use to farm here, very interesting, or to push the wave. He will be taken down eventually. What exactly happened there? I mean, that was just the all-in timing and the fact that level lead was so big. Jace generally is able to solo kill the Gragas, but Lucid was not able to find the threat that was possible there, as beautiful kill and the cooldown reduction secured Zeus the kill there in the end. And now he has a tier, and he has his first stat item that is going to give him some combat stats here. It's going to be the Ruby Crystal. The tier is really good, helps you with sustain. You do need a lot of it. And obviously, blowing your ultimate, not half as bad in this case, as we have some cooldown reduction available to us. We're going to scout for wards here. This is a very important kind of habit to get into as a top laner, and also as a mid laner oftentimes is, you know, if the wave state kind of overextended, you know the wave state is going to come into you eventually anyway. You can, you know, decide to just take out a couple of wards before, or place your wards. Maybe even you get into the lane, place your control ward quick enough that the enemy can't tell. And we are preparing to push here, as Poppy is going to find a good amount of damage here onto the Jace. Is going to chase him down, but will not take him down barely. But Jace is bullied out of the lane once again, which is going to mean a proc here onto the tower. Oh, actually, we are not running. Yeah, we didn't have a look at the runes, but we are not running Demolish. Very interesting. We're actually running Biscuits and Cosmic Insight, which I find very interesting. It's a very cocky setup. A lot of Gragas would prefer, especially against Jace, would prefer a bit more defensive second rune spell, but a rune setup. But in this case, absolutely not. We are also going to proxy this, which clearly indicates that the jungler is there. Gragas being very good at the 2v2 as well, as obviously having a level lead here over the Jace with a beautiful barrel combo. He is going to pick up a kill onto the Jace here. Flung Jace and through the barrel where Jace would end up. This obviously leaves you with a little bit more maneuverability and a little bit less predictability here by the Jace, who is absolutely out of the game now. Jace very reliant on falling behind, something that doesn't usually happen to Zeus very much. Even if he dies a lot, he doesn't usually fall behind a lot. That obviously goes hand in hand with CSing and all of those kind of things. And yeah, I mean, top lane can be an absolutely brutal lane where you can get clobbered super hard if you make a mistake. And now blue buff is available here for the Gragas, and you see that the trades are ridiculously strong. Jace trying to take a favorable trade here, is going to take down the Poppy. So that is a 2-for-2 trade, very valuable for the Jace, but the problem is he's going to be worth money now again. Bit of an issue for the team, as obviously this Jace has to somehow get himself into the game again. This little lane here is going to be very good for him. Gets a good amount of minions. Through his teleport, he also acquires obviously the kill on to the Poppy before the teleport, which is also going to be very huge. Now Zeus, being cocky as he is going to find himself in the 2v1 here, as Annie will be closing in as well. Jace now laying chase with a stack Conqueror, laying chase to the Gragas. But Gragas, such a big boy that he is going to go for a full damage combo to even out that HP lead. And now with Gragas having quite a bit of burst damage and the ability to cancel the Jace Q, he will just move in and body slam the hell out of Jace and take him down. And this is exactly what the boots are helping him with. It is that spacing of getting into range to use your spells. It's a specifically underrated thing on something like the Gragas. It's kind of a no-brainer for most high reload players on something like the Akali. Because obviously, you know, things like Akali, things like Sylas, they do like the spacing to enable them to get into range, get good trades, and so on and so forth. But on Gragas, also very, very important versus certain picks, as your body slam has priority over a lot of CC abilities. And you can mess up a Jace pretty hard, as your body slam has priority over his Q, of course. And so you can do a lot of damage, which we've already seen so far, as Zeus taking very cocky trades, and he has been able to get away with it. This is obviously something that has to be added. He's taking a lot of trades that shouldn't be allowed, should be kind of illegal to take here, as he is now shoving in the lane with a Rod of Ages in hands. It's going to deal some damage to the tower, and we see, this is what we talked about earlier in the analysis of the stats. We saw a focus on the lane and on the plates and dealing damage to the tower and getting yourself ahead CS-wise as well, instead of roaming to the place. This one was a play that definitely didn't go in favor of the red team here. I would assume that his decision here was that he would not be able to impact this. And he's gonna try and snowball it up here, but I can't help but feel like he should have been at the dragon fight at least, or well, it wasn't really a dragon fight, it was a pre-dragon fight. Generally, something that obviously you don't really need to train for, and I think this is the thing, right? As a solo queue player, you need to train to play with your team. As a pro player, you need to train to play with the pro team, and solo queue doesn't really matter. And so solo queue, you're gonna have a lot of fights that don't really do anything, right? Fights in situations where you don't need to be there, but people will still fight just to get that little edge, trying to sin out of their mind. And obviously Gragas in this case, decided to stay in the top side, play that correctly, and now for the dragon fight actually be here, as Cassiopeia ultimate is going to be used here, as the Herald will go down, and big damage out of the big boy. He is a big problem, and also a huge fan of picking up a kill onto the Lee Sin, who will go down once again into the steep pockets of this one top laner, as he will ignore the Jace and ignore the couple of minions that are dying here, and prepare to push this wave out, realizing that the dragon is just not happening with all the fiesta that is going on. Generally, his team not doing super well right now, but they do have a Cassiopeia and a Xayah Rakan, so you can be forgiven for your transgressions. Generally, Xayah Rakan not super bad against the Lucian Nami. If you ignore the very, very wonky early game, as we are going to deal a good amount of damage to the tower here. Not going to be able to take that one down though, as, yeah, the Gragas body slam secures a safe Q, as Jace pretending like his Q does anything to the Gragas. And we haven't really gotten to talk about why Gragas is so incredibly strong here, as obviously this game has been much more action-packed. My notes? They're reading a lot of things, but Zeus doesn't think so. Zeus will just try to pick up kills at this current point in time. That is all he's doing at the moment, as a flash out of the Cassiopeia. She will be chased under the turret and will be taken down here by the Annie. 4-0-3 Annie is pretty scary to impact those team fights, as good damage onto the Gragas. Gragas body slam and the ultimate. He will be taken down by the Lee Sin, but it is a trade for the Lee Sin in this current point in time. But double kill goes down for Annie here, as this is an absolute fiasco for Zeus. He gave down a shutdown, gave over a shutdown, not to the enemy AD carry, fortunately, not to the Annie, fortunately, but he gave it over to the Lee Sin, which is still a pretty scary subject, because you are just giving 450 gold to a champion that is coming into their own at this current point in time, right? And Jace kind of just doing weak top laner things. He's trying to push out, being very careful, being very conservative. He can't take the tower. He can't really take any risks. He can't take the jungle of his team, or, well, probably wouldn't want to, as if you're not doing super hot, then it is a questionable thing to do that. If your Lee Sin is having more impact into the game right now. We see huge farm numbers here on the Zeus in comparison to everyone else. That is because Zeus was keeping to his own most of the time here and was not having part in the Fiesta, as now he has a 2-item pretty strong core here built up with the Archangel stuff, and the Rod of Ages now at 5 stacks. He is going to be joining the team fights a little bit more with pretty good rotation, in my opinion, of putting Cassio to the side lane. Let her macro up a little bit. She is pretty safe as well. And Zeus just getting the option to influence these fights a little bit more and do a couple more things. Wave clear, considerably better than Cassiopeia's at the moment as well, as he does have to be a little bit careful, obviously. The ultimate is going to come through. Lee Sin reads it correctly and will not be tagged by that one, will not be dragged into the team by it, as pretty good binding here onto the Lucian, but the Rakan is just going to be bursted by the Lucian Nami. Incredibly potential combo, that one, obviously, as we don't have our ultimate available now. It's going to be up for clearing waves with your Q at this current point in time, and obviously wave clear, as I said, is better than Cassiopeia's. Is not the best wave clear at all, as Gragas is going to be kicked here. He is incredibly tanky, even though being full AP, but he will eventually be doven and taken out. But Lee Sin trades himself and his flash for the Gragas, for the pickup on the Gragas. Questionable if that was worth it. Probably not, to be honest, as obviously Xerath's Embrace still not transformed here, right? We're still sitting on the Archangel stuff, so no shield for the Gragas, no shield for the big man. And there are a couple of options that you can go for here as Gragas. Unfortunately, the Annie is very strong, so going for something like a Frozen Heart, much less value, much more diminished value here. As it is notable that Gragas is not going to go for Fimbulwinter. He will go for the Archangel stuff. That is because Fimbulwinter currently, as it stands, not necessarily the strongest item. It does its job on in a couple situations, but really not really, right? Pretty much Archangels on something like the Gragas much, much better. And obviously also on the, more AD spellcaster side of things, you also have the Mana Moon, which is just incredibly strong. Unrivaled in power, I would say. Well, Archangels does the same thing, right? And I mean, these items are good. The thing is, you want the tier on Gragas, you need it to get yourself through the early laning phase, so you might as well build an item out of that, which is a pretty good item considering that you are getting the tier anyhow. You get yourself over with the mana, as Cassiopeia will be setting up a little bit of a trap here for the Jace. As the trap is sprung, he will get himself out of there, but now empowered Q available now, as he will try to grab a couple of minions. Q will tag the Jace, as he will just try to pick up as much money as possible and go down, as Cassiopeia instantly recalling here as a fight is breaking, or is about to break out in the mid lane. Everyone's kind of trying to poke and prod and find a good positioning, as Gragas moving in there like an unstoppable force of just pure meaty goodness. And we will be looking for a big Gragas ultimate. Honestly, taking down the Nami would be amazing, but that is probably not going to happen, as Nami just wants to stay back. Lucian preparing, being very, very scary already. Looking to burst out that Xayah, but unfortunately in this case, the fight will be fought here by the blue team. They could have picked up the mid lane turret, could have done a much better job on the rotation, but unfortunately that is not going to be happening. Instead, we are kind of posturing, thinking about what we want to do. This is obviously what happens in solo queue, right? For a pro player, absolutely, especially of Zeus's caliber, absolutely not too much of an issue, as Annie is going to be looking for a very predictable all-in here. Big Nami bubble will find a lot of the team, and Cassiopeia kind of left out in the open here. Cassiopeia ultimate is going to find 2 targets. Zeus dropping awfully low. Zeus? I see a Jace and I say it's Zeus. No. This is DK Lucid. This is not the Zeus. This is the one that lost to Zeus. As Zeus will go back, and Jace was dropping kind of low, but nothing really going on in that fight. Ends up not really doing anything, producing any results here. As we are going to be moving into the bottom lane now as Zeus. I'm going to be picking up some of our CS here. Again, some of that good gold. We are also pretty close to the Archangel stuff, so getting that transform would be really nice, and it is much more reliable to get it onto the minions here. We are going to shove this wave out, and we will try to rotate to the Baron, I would assume, right after. As at this current point, can't really be concerned with the Jace anymore. Jace, kind of an afterthought here, as the Xayah ultimate is popped, and Lucian will find the solo kill, flashing out of the Feather Storm as well, and will get himself to safety here. Indeed, as the Cassiopeia, kind of trying to manhandle the 2 scarier opponents here on the enemy team, besides obviously the AD carry. As now the AD carry will find himself in a little bit of trouble. Fortunately, a dash will get him out of there, as the Poppy was not able to lock him down, and that is a really big kill here onto the Poppy and the Rakan. Zeus now trying to run for his life, will be taken down as well here by the Lee Sin. Doesn't really have a lot of impact onto these fights. The problem with Gragas here is that Gragas is Thanks for watching. And I guess Zeus agreed. This one, not winnable. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.